Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to another NMRAx. We've got, looks like we've got about 4 hours of entertainment here, so grab your popcorn and sit back. We've got a plethora of presenters coming up. So anyway, you don't want to listen to me rabbit on. Our next presenter here comes from the frozen tundras of Canada, near the nation's capital. He's been working on a little layout that's only 40 foot by 20 foot. It's just a moderate layout for the last 7 years, and spending too much time on buildings and scenery and not enough time actually running trains. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to MHO Junction, or as I know him, Lloyd Henchey from Ottawa, Canada. Speak to you soon. Over to you, Lloyd.
Hello, Marty. Yeah, so for those who don't know me, yes, I'm Lloyd Henchey, also known as John Pacheco, MHO Junction on Facebook, on YouTube. And as Marty mentioned, I'm working on my layout, which is about 40 feet by 20 feet, L shape. And let me just share. Can you see that? Okay, so that's about my layout. And I calculated that I've got about, oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, I forgot to click. Okay. Is that better? Oh, okay. So yeah, like I was saying, my layout is about 40 by 20 L shape. And I calculated last month that I had about 30% done. I mean, all the track work is done, and I'm really having fun with scenery. So while I was building my layout, I learned a lot by my own because I am way in the boondocks. So I spent a lot of time watching videos and looking at pictures, which brings me to the clinic and the next 6 clinics on scenery. So why clinics on scenery? Well, if we ask, how do I do this? We will get lots of answers, and some will even say, this is how you do it. And if not, you're doing it wrong. I know I've been told a few times. So let me show you next slide, which is a picture of an example of the first clinic, which will be on terrain, basically elevation, mountains, rock cropping. And one thing I noticed is that there's a lot of techniques. I mean, you could all go watch them on YouTube or watch pictures of it. But what brought me to those clinics is that since there's a lot of ways of doing it, there's some cheap ways of doing it. There's expensive way. There's a lot of it is time consuming. Some are pretty fast. And some of them you need pretty much artistic talent. So this clinic here is mainly about scenery in general. What exactly do we see outside? And when I start with what I call the 6 pillars of scenery, which will start in February, if I'm not wrong, then we'll go into details in each of the pillars. So let's get started on what we really see out there as scenery. So I call this the 6 pillars, and that's because I've categorized them in different sections. So what is scenery? It's an element, it's elements like mountain, rivers, forests, buildings, skies, and the overall ambience, evoking a sense of place and setting for the observer. So what we'll do is, oh yeah, I forgot. There's two types of scenery. There's the nature scenery, which emphasizes the beauty and diversity of natural world, such as mountain, rivers, forests, etc. And then there's the human-built scenery. Human-built scenery showcases human ingenuity, culture, and urban development, such as structures, bridges, roads, etc. So first, let's look at terrain elevation. We often see pictures of layouts that are on, I'll say on a piece of plywood or just a framework which is flat. But if you look at this topographic map that shows ground elevation, each brown line represents 100 feet elevation change, and the white area represents mainly flat areas. As you can see, areas are rarely flat unless you live in the Canadian prairies or mid-US. Oh, and as a side note, Florida is the flattest state with 52% of the area. So by looking at elevation like this, it really sticks out. It doesn't matter where you are, there's always going to be elevations. And I was looking at where I live. There's a farmer's land that grows corn on the cob, and it looks totally flat. But in the spring or winter, you could see that there's probably, I'd say, about 10 feet elevation between, oh, let's say 1,000 feet. But 12, 14 feet, you're talking about 2 inches in whole scale. So there is elevation when you really look at it. So next we'll look at some of the elements that create scenery. First, there's nature scenery, which is elevation like mountains, hills, outcrops. Vegetation, bushes, grass, weeds, flowers, trees. Oh, and the reason trees is in green here is because trees are going to have its own pillar, because there's so many techniques of doing trees that just having to go through them all is a clinic in itself. Then there's the water features such as river, streams, ponds, lakes, waterfalls. Human-built scenery, you got roads, asphalt, concrete, dirt, gravel, bridges. And then we have details such as lights, animals, people, signs, fences, etc. So first, let's take a look at terrain. Terrain is just a mix of hills, mountains, plains that makes up the ground you walk on. It's a natural shape and character of the Earth's surface. So now what we're going to see is basically different types of pictures to explain what I mean by each element. So we have terrain mountains. So some rocks facade are smooth, while others might be bumpy or jagged. The colors of the rocks can be different too. Some are gray, brown, or even a little red or orange. The sun might be shining on some parts, making them look bright, while other areas might be in the shade, looking darker. And if anybody's modeling winter, well, here's a good example of where the snow should be. Hills. The hills goes up and down in a gentle way, and it's covered in soft grass. Some parts of the hill might have weeds, bushes, and flowers, make it even more colorful and denser. Picture some big rocks sticking out of the ground. These are called rock outcrops. They can be like nature's sculpture, sticking out in interesting shapes and sizes. Some rocks might be smooth, while others are rough and bumpy. The colors can vary too, gray, brown, or maybe even a mixed shade. The sun might be shining on them, creating shadows and highlights that makes the rocks look even more fascinating. These outcrops can be like outdoor art, adding characters and texture to the landscape. So when you're working on your layout, even though your layout is flat, you can just have like a 1 inch sticking out and just have a rock outcrop, which will really your uh, bring a look to your layout, not just flat. So now let's look at vegetation. Vegetation is just a fancy word for all the plants and green stuff growing in the area, such as grass, weeds, bushes, shrubs, flowers, vines, and trees. Imagine a big field with lots of green grass. It comes in all shapes and lengths. It's a simple and peaceful scene. It also it's also a common, simple, unexpected sight on less traveled sightings. The weeds are like shiny plants growing all over the place. Some might have flowers and others could be just plain green. The field looks a bit wild, but it's also full of life and color with all these different kind of weeds. The weeds can be skinny and tall, and they might have leaves or flowers on top. The wildness of the weeds create a bit of natural charm along the railways. You can see flowers are also flowers along the tracks make for a colorful scene. So imagine a big field full of colored flowers. They come in all sorts of colors, red, blue, yellow, and more. Some flowers might be big and showy, while others are small and delicate. The field looks like a giant natural bouquet. Now, bushes are like groups of small leafy plants that stick together in the field. They're all over the place, creating a sort of natural garden. Some bushes might have tiny flowers or berries on them. These little leafy clusters add a touch of natural charm in the landscape. And bushes also can also create a corridor for the train tracks. Next are trees. By doing a little research for the Southeastern Ontario trees for our division clinic, I was able to find the top 3 trees that make up 85% of all the trees in the area with their average width and heights. It's amazing to think about the different types, size, and colors of trees out there. Each one brings its own unique beauty to the environment. Like I said, when I did the research for our division, and I was thinking of this clinic when I was going to give it, I mean, if you're out, I don't know, let's see, in Arizona, you won't have the same trees. But if you do a search on the internet to find out what kind of trees are in that area, what's their average height, what's the average circumference of the tree, and also the size of the trunk, that'll give you a good idea of what you could put on your layout. In different places and time of the year, we see lots of beautiful views around us. The scenery change based on where we are and what season it is. Whether they're broad or tall, trees create a diverse and colorful landscape. Now, imagine a place that's all wet and squishy, kind of like a giant sponge. This is a soggy wetland area. The ground is soft and damp, and there might be water sitting around. Now, imagine a place, oh no, was going to say, so you might see all tall grasses and plants that like having their feet wet. Sometimes there are small ponds or pools of water. The depth of the wetland can vary widely depending on the specific type of wetland and its location. Okay, so now let's look at water. Bodies of water and scenery, whether they are streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, or oceans, they contribute significantly to the overall beauty and functionality of the landscape. So we have streams. They're like a tiny river. The water moves along, making a gentle sound as it travels over rocks and pebbles. You might see plants and bushes along the side. The stream is not wide, but the water could move fast, making a lively and cheerful sound as it rushes over rocks and stones. The stream is like a miniature river, always on the move. Then you have rivers. Rivers come in various types, each with its own characteristic based on factors like size, flow, and location. The river is like a lively ribbon of water, always on the move. Along its banks, you might find some trees hanging low and boulders getting a little wet from the splashing water. And, and of course, rivers can be very large also. I guess too large for a layout. Um, Ponds. The pond is like a tiny natural bathtub tucked into the land. Its water is calm, not rushing like a river, and you can see the surface reflecting the sky and trees around it. Unlike a small pond, this one is quite spacious. This large pond is a serene place, a bit like a peaceful oasis in nature where you can enjoy the stillness of the water and maybe even spot some ducks swimming around. A lake is a lake is like a massive natural water area surrounded by land. The water is calm and stretches far and wide. Around the lake, there might be trees standing tall, creating a green frame. It's a lovely scene where the lake meets the land, offering both the tranquility of water and the fun of its sandy shore. Rapids are like fast and bumpy parts of a river. The water rushes over the rocks and stones, creating lots of splashes and foam. Sometimes the water looks a bit frothy and white. Those are a really nice scene on layouts, if we can achieve the look of it. Falls have different width and heights. The water falls from a high place, splashing and crashing on the rocks below. Picture the water turning into misty clouds as it drops. So next, we look at roads. Um, so roads come in various types, each designed for specific purpose and varying transportation need. The ground of a dirt road is rough and made of soil, and when you walk on or drive on it, you might feel bumps and unevenness. And along the sides of the dirt road, there could be rocks, dust, or maybe even some plants growing in the middle of the road. Gravel roads are often used in less busy places, and they give you a different kind of feel compared to the smoothness of the paved road. They're a cost-effective and practical choice for roads in certain places where a smoother road might be too fancy or not suited for the conditions. The even and solid nature of asphalt contributes to a smoother and more comfortable ride for vehicles, emphasizing its popularity in creating enduring and resilient roadways, unless maintenance is not a priority. Concrete roads are picked because they're strong, durable, and can handle a lot of traffic without wearing out quickly. And concrete roads are commonly used for highways. Let's not forget cobblestone roads are like something out of the past. You might see cobblestone roads in older parts of towns or cities. They bring a touch of nostalgia and a sense of history to the places they wind through. Now you can have covered bridge for both cars and trains. They were designed to protect the wooden structures from the weather. You might find them in more rural or historic areas. Stone block bridges can have an ancient and rugged look, often blending in with the natural surroundings. Stone block bridges are known for their durability and timeless appearance. And steel bridges are like modern giants of transportation. They're made of strong steel beams and girders to handle heavy loads and are known for their strength and efficiency. Each type of bridge has its own unique style and purpose, adding character to the scenery. Now, let's look at some details. You've got human elements, such as figurine, vehicles. You got wildlife elements, animal, fish, birds, and man-made elements, buildings, signs, fences, etc. So let's take a look at some of the details that could be that you will definitely see outside and you can incorporate into your layout. Figurines can be anywhere, and so can vehicles. Wildlife attracts people curiosity and bring life to water features. Structures can be found anywhere also, and in different shapes. So let's not forget there's so many types of fences. At one point, I think I was up to 12 types of fences, like besides wood and wire, oh, galvanized steel. Anyway, there's lots of fences. And let's not forget signs. It could be street signs, any signs really. And my favorite are utility poles with guy wires and anchors. So whenever you're driving around, look at the scenery, and when you get back to your layout, let your imagination take over. Bring your framework or your plywood base to life. In the 7 years, well, when I started, I guess my mentor or the person that I looked at to give me ideas was Mike Caffalone. And there's been so many others since. And lately, this name is like this scene here was done by Evan Days from Minima Forma, has showcased an exceptional attention to detail, elevating the realism to an impressive level. His sceneries are really, really nice. And to be able to achieve this takes a lot of practice. And one thing I learned is you don't practice on your layout, you practice somewhere else. And so that gives me a lot of inspiration for my layout. So that pretty much covers all of, pretty much, yeah, it covers pretty much all what I want to say about what you see as scenery. And so what's next? We're going to do, well, I will, with the partnership of our division, present scenery clinics. On our ongoing scenery clinics, we'll look at diverse avenues for creating compelling landscape. We'll look at the costs consideration, ensuring that your scenic pursuit aligns with your budgetary constraints. We often hear that this hobby is getting expensive, but there's a lot of things that could be handmade. But then we'll look at time. A precious source will be thoughtfully addressed, offering insight into efficient methods that suit your schedule. That's because there's techniques that could take 3-4 days, while there's other techniques that will take half a day. So cost and time. And then finally, we'll tap into the realm of artistic capabilities, unlocking the creative potential that transforms scenery from ordinary to extraordinary. Now, again, if you don't have the talent, of course, you need to practice to achieve what you want to do. But all three will determine what's best for you. Like I said, some people have told me, well, if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong. Well, if I don't have the money to do it, I'll pick a different technique. I just have to master that technique to achieve something that I want or that I'm gonna like. So basically, during each pillar clinic, we aim to comprehensively explore various techniques. We'll talk about the factors such as cost, time, and skill level. And this will provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the diverse approaches available based on the individual preferences and resource. So we're going to have 6 pillars, 6 clinics, starting in February. The first one will be terrain. I'm just going to go back here. In our division, which is the St. Lawrence division from the NMRA, for the year, we've decided to work on one topic, and the topic was scenery. So what we do is we give one clinic on basically what you're going to be seeing is all the different techniques, and then we'll present 2 or 3 techniques that people can try. So in the afternoon, we have a hands-on clinic where everybody participates on one of those 2 or 3 techniques. And I gotta say, everybody's been having a lot of fun. So right now, we've done terrain, vegetation, water is being done in January. So you guys can follow with the same type of presentation. And what everybody likes is that it really takes you out of your comfort zone to try something different. Now, of course, when the members were working on the techniques, we would provide them with a base so they can practice on a base instead of practicing directly on the layout. So if you want to keep in mind, so we've got February, March, April, then we skip May, and then we have June, July, August. So the scenery clinics will look for every clinic. We're going to be looking at techniques, cost, time, and artistry. These clinics are ongoing with our NMRA division, and like I said, following the clinics, we have a hands-on for members to try different techniques and step out of their comfort zone. Okay, so yeah, so like I said, the subject was scenery, and what we also mentioned is that instead of how can I say, since you're going to be participating in every technique, we suggested that people do a diorama. And the diorama will consist of all 6 pillars. So everyone was given a 16 by 24 styrofoam as a base. And on the first clinic, we showed them how to do a rock work with ceiling tiles. It's something that's very cheap, and there was, like, most of the people hadn't done ceiling tiles, so it was one way of showing them how you can do that. Another one, also, once they were waiting for their glue to set, they were working on molds. We had the scenic woodland scenic molds, so everybody could try using different molds. So, but also we told them, like, everything that was going to be done. So to have some type of plan, and you can see some of the, I don't know if you can see, but some had drawn their plan, if you want, of what it was going to look like, because they needed where they were going to put like a little mountain. There was going to be a river or a stream or a pond. There's going to be like a water feature. There's going to be a road that they were going to work on. They were going to work on vegetation, and they're going to work on trees. So all this will be part of their diorama. And if any of you want to participate, get yourself a 16 by 24, like I said, styrofoam. And once we start the clinic, we'll tell you all the tools and equipment needed, material needed, and you could basically follow and do the same thing and have it ready for the next month, where we go into a different topic. It was well perceived, I can tell you. It was just the fact that it was out of the comfort zone and doing something totally new. So that should be about it. So I'm doing this with the collaboration of the St. Lawrence Division, because I might do a presentation, for example, on like the ceiling tiles. Somebody else, another member, would do a 10-minute presentation on the molds, and another member would do a presentation on sculpture mold. And this is how we're going to be doing it for our division, except that here in the presentation, I'm just repeating what some others have talked about. For example, when we do water, well, somebody will talk about epoxy resin, another one will talk about gel, another one will talk about Mod Podge, and then how to put waves on the surface. So everybody's really involved in our division to go over the scenery for the entire year. And that's it. Sorry, I went a little bit too fast, but that was about it.
Not a problem, Lloyd. Not a problem. We can go back over and we'll pick out some questions. I think some people will start posting some questions in the chat, and we can go from there. So let's go and have a little look. So scenery, you're quite passionate about the scenery work that you do. Have you actually attained your scenery AP certificate yet with the NMRA, or?
Yeah, it's funny you ask, because say about half an hour ago, I was just advised that I did get my AP scenery. Everything checks out. So yeah, now I have
Excellent. Oh, congratulations. So you're on the road, as they say, to MMR.
But yes, scenery is, for me, I love scenery. I like to see people doing stuff to their layout that really sticks out. And I believe that just having, for example, having different elevations on your layout really represents what the land is supposed to look like.
Yes, yeah. I noticed as well over the years you've added quite a few little animations into your layout as well. Can you give us is there going to be any, which episode, which of the 6 pillars do I need to tune into to get into the animation? I reckon that could be the sleeping 7th pillar.
To be honest, I've never thought about it. There's so much that could be done. That goes into details, I guess. When you're doing a scene, like for example, where I have my 2 bridges, I've got hunters that are near the bridge. I've got I've got this. I've really put in a scene, and one of the things I want to do is put a sensor that when a train goes by, it will detect and play a sound of the water rushing, the ambient sound that you would normally find around there. But I don't think I want to go in there towards there. It will be mainly like details. For example, I've got a mining company, and the mining company is pretty big, the one from Walters. And if you have that on your layout, that means there's about, what, 20, 30 people working in there, 40, 50 people working?
Yes.
So you would kind of need a parking lot that's big enough to have about 40, 50 cars in it. But if you don't have the room for it, you got to create some type of story. So what I did is I put a bus basically bringing the people from the other side of the tracks, which is basically the aisle, and there's a road going in the back with a bus, and people are just walking towards the bus, like kind of their shift finished. It's
right.
Little details like that that would explain what's going on. It's just not a building. So when we get to the 6th pillar, which is details, that's when we will be looking at that. And
okay.
And I know that our division, a lot of people can't wait for the trees, the tree scenery clinic, because with the, I'm sure you've seen so many trees being done with wires or plants that you find. I can't remember the name of the plant, but there's so many ways of doing it. Yeah, that's it. Or
the one they use here.
The wire with the cord in the middle. There's there's so many of them. So we're going to go through a clinic showing all the different types of trees that you can build, and again, you decide on what you want. Just to give you an example, again, the mountains that and the elevation part, the terrain part.
Yes.
We found 8 ways of doing mountains.
Yes.
Now, of course, each one has also sub techniques. But the cheapest technique comes out to about, I think it was 23 cents or 25 cents a square foot. While the most expensive technique is almost like $2, $2.20 a square foot.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and there's one technique that takes about 4 or 5 days, and the other technique is you could have it done in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So, to say that there's a good way or a wrong way, it really depends on the person, and that's what I want to show, is that you don't have to do it that way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's multiple ways of doing things, and whatever's the easiest that works out for yourself. I'll have a look here. There's someone's put a sarcastic question in here. I think it's aimed at me, saying, how much scenery have I attempted? Well, in probably about the last 10 years, I think I made a 1 by 1 foot diorama. So that's about all the scenery I've done at the moment. You know my problem, rabbit holes. But anyway.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
I was going to say, we often hear where people say, okay, you do all your track work, you test your track work, and then you start doing your buildings, and then you do your scenery. I would say that's pretty much how the majority of the people would think.
Yes.
But I can say that on my layout, the tracks were not finished, and I was already working on scenery. And probably because the size of my layout, I just needed, how can I say it? Like I was never fed up. Like if I was to work on scenery for 3 days, then I would turn around and work on my wiring. And then
Yes.
there was always something interesting, and I couldn't wait to get to the next part.
Well, that's what I tend to find. If you turn around and you do one thing and you say, right, I'm going to just do track laying now, get all the track down, you tend to go, I don't know, I tend to lose interest by about halfway through it and then drift off onto something else. Yeah, you're right. You've got to be disciplined, and you've got to do a little bit on each part, I think, as you go along. But then again, there's no fixed way to really do it. It's all up to you. I mean, like I said, I've probably spent about 10 years, and I haven't even got any scenery down. I haven't even got any track down on the actual scenic part of the layout. All I've done is played around with the electronics and the hidden storage and other rabbit holes to run down. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me have a little look. What other questions we may have here? A mini scene or a cameo scene can speak 1,000 words. It comes from Gary Rumming. And I'd say that Gary's got a very nice little layout. And as he says, you don't need to have a huge layout. Just a small scene can speak 1,000 words. I
was going to show you here, Marty. Like I said, we told the people to build a diorama of about 16 by 24.
Yep.
This is what I'm working on right now. So we've done the first stage, which was elevation. So you can see that my land is bumpy, if you want.
Yeah.
And then we had the vegetation. So what kind of vegetation to put on your diorama. And in January, we're going to be talking about water. So I've prepared the scene so that people can see how the water was done. And I might as well put in some details, but I was a little bit too in a hurry to put details. I should have waited. But then we're going to have
they're ducks. I take it in the pond there.
Yeah, they're ducks. They're from mini prints. And to paint that, I mean, that was small.
And the stone wall you've got there, if you can zoom in on the old stone wall. So how did you put that together?
Well, I built a jig with the right size of with the real dimensions of stone wall, and then I poured stones that I bought. I think it was at the dollar store. They're 3/8 of an inch, and so what happens is that I take the stones, I put them in a cup, put some white glue, mix everything up. Then I put it in my jig, which is a U-shaped jig. That's filled. But first I'll put wax paper inside the jig, shove everything in, tap it, let it dry for about a day or two, and take it out of the jig and paint and remove a few a few rocks. It's
Oh,
very simple, but
yeah,
yeah,
very effective though. I mean, you know, an old stone wall can go anywhere. I mean, you know, you
yeah.
could
Not
do it
only in
with
Europe,
brick. Yeah.
and in 3 months we're going to be doing roads. So I'm ready to get the roads ready. And this here was the first clinic, which is to build like a rock wall, and this was done
Yeah.
with 3 pieces of molding, not molding, but plaster in the mold there from Woodland Scenics.
Okay. Yes. Yep.
So by doing that, everybody's touching everything that has to do with scenery, and then everybody could get their scenery AP.
Yeah, that's quite a neat little idea. Actually, making the little diorama to just to address all the different aspects of doing scenery. I mean, roads, detailed parts, power poles, structures. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, no, great little idea. Um, that's what
So
I like when they have these little scenery comps where, you know, like I said, the last bit of scenery I did was a little 1 foot by 1 foot diorama for a local convention I went to here. Um, but yeah, some people have said maybe I should cut my layout up into 1 foot by 1 foot sections because I seem to have made that diorama very quickly, and then I could make a whole bunch of mini dioramas and join them together. But anyway,
yeah,
let me have a look what other questions or comments have been coming in. They've been pretty quiet.
it's the 23rd of December. Here, let me just
23rd.
show you another one.
Yep,
I'll show you another one. This is
yep.
for our water clinic in January. Now, this one here,
Okay.
okay, is done with gel,
Yep, that's focused. Yep, yep. Cool.
okay? And this one here is done with Mod Podge.
Okay.
And I've got another one which is basically epoxy resin. But all three were, so that's what they're going to be working on. They're going to have a piece of 5 inch by 8 inch. They're going to carve
Yes.
to make a riverbed. And yeah, they're going to work on it. And for example, the, what do you call it? The edge of the rivers, I did that pretty fast, but I used to, I have some AK products like
Yes.
wet mud, dry mud. I decided to see if I could make my own, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to come up with it. Well, I had some dirt from outside,
Oh,
passed through a
yep. Yep.
sieve, and put some white glue and water and mix everything up, and yeah. So
Yeah. A lot of my
that's another
ground
way of
cover,
doing it.
I think a lot
So
of my
instead of
ground cover I've ever used has come from the park next door, where I've gone over and collected a bucket of gravel or dirt and come back and sieved it, and hey presto.
Mhm. So again, so I'm going back to the clinics. It's to show that you could probably do a river for, oh gee, 10 cents a square foot, or you could do it with epoxy where it's going to cost you a little bit more than that.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that was the reason of the clinics.
So have you done much water with, say, the commercial products that are out there by Woodland Scenics or any of the other manufacturers, or have you generally
Yeah, I,
used?
I yeah, I've tried Woodland Scenics before they came out with the deep pour.
Yep.
And what happens when you don't read the instructions? I poured I poured half an inch, and it shrank and cracked, and I go, okay, that's not. Then I noticed that you got to pour only 1/8 of an inch. So if you're doing I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or an inch. So you got to do 3-4 layers. And
Yes.
of course, it's going to be time consuming. You got to wait and hoping that everything goes right. Now there's deep pour. It's like when I did my river, I bought epoxy resin, and I was very happy with it. I was able to pour almost like 1.5 inches,
Yes.
and I ran out of it. So last month I bought another set, but from a different manufacturing. And I was doing it, no problem, to realize that it says on the bottle, maximum 1/8 of an inch. And I go, oh, gee. So yeah, it's
Yes.
You got to make
We
sure
had
you
the
got the right.
same problem here with that product in Australia with the humidity, especially up in Queensland, and the further north you get, it expands and contracts quite a bit. And again, a friend of mine made a lake, and he poured about 1.5 inches of it. And when it set, it was lovely, but about 2 days later, it expanded and it went off like a firecracker. I reckon if anyone was in the train room, they could have got a shard of Woodland's water in there flying at them, because it went off like an explosion. Yes.
But yeah, each product is good depending what you use it for. If you're going to put, like, for example, if you're going to put drops of acrylic paint to give it a tint,
Yes.
so it doesn't matter if it's not deep, because you're not going to see the bottom anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So, but if you want something clear, yeah, you can't go too heavy.
I always remember there's a modeler used to be around in Australia. It's well known, Jeff Knott, who's one of our NMRA members. Selfless plug here, if you actually are in Sacramento and you go to the History of Scale Model Railroading exhibit at the California State Rail Museum, the first thing you'll actually see when you come in is Jeff's layout. We had it shipped over from Australia to go in the museum there, but he has got this New England scene there, and he's got all the waves that are coming up on the beach. And I said to him one day, I said, how did you get the waves? How did you get the cresting motion and all that? What product did you use? And good old Jeff, everything was very basic. He said sealing paint from the hardware store and put it in the fridge for 2 or 3 days before you apply it. And it thickens it right out, and then you can make the curls of the waves or the crests coming up, and then go back later on and paint them. And I thought, how simple is that? Just take some simple old sealing paint, put it in the fridge for a few days, make sure no one mistakes it for yogurt and decides to drink it. And when you pull it out, it'll be nice and thick, and you can just apply it like a putty, sort of, almost. And anyway.
Or somebody would suggest also using some clear caulking, but with time it'll get yellowish, and you're going, oh no.
Oh, they're all having comments here about me breaking my layout down into smaller bits to actually get it finished. Ken and Darren were saying about the stone wall. That was very effective and fairly simple to put together when you think about it. Ken's saying, yes, we got to read instructions. So, yeah, if we're playing with that water, we better read some instructions. Make and take, drop the sections into a layout. Yeah, you could do. You could make those modules you're making as part of someone's layout if they wanted them to be. I mean, there's plenty of layouts that have been put together like that. I mean, Ken Patterson's layout's all basically foam modules that are sitting on tables, so he can pull out and swap and change and modify whatever he wants. That's a good idea. Jeff Knott was a master and a pleasure to chat with. Yes, he certainly was, Jeff, and very funny as well. very dry humour. But anyway, so what other comments you got there for us, Lloyd? What we've talked about the detailings part of it. We talked about the trees and how advanced and how things have changed. I mean, you think back 15 years ago. I mean, we were happy with a little plastic armature with a bit of green fluff sitting on the top of the armature to represent a tree. But now the detail that we're getting into is quite amazing.
Yeah, well,
I know two guys at our club are using that wire armature. And what they've done is one area where there's actually like a cliff face, and you can actually see the roots of the tree running down into the ground on the side of the cliff, you know. So the
but
details.
Again, you see, this is that's pretty time consuming when you're having to twist all the wires, and usually those are for foreground trees.
Yes.
But I got into using sagebrush with super trees and cutting little bits and pieces of super trees and gluing them on the sagebrush, and just that will take me probably a good 2-3 hours to do one tree. So yeah, it is time consuming, but that's what I want to do.
Yes, yeah. Like you said, those armature type trees, the amount of work that you put into them, and the likes, they're usually foreground trees, and as we start to get further to the back, the quality starts to drop off. But anyway, let's have a quick look over here at the chat and see if I've missed anything here. You can drop into your layer. Oh, there you go. Split Rock is saying there might be a clinic coming up about scenery you can drop into your layout. So let's have a little look. Michael Robinson saying g'day from Adelaide. We got a few Australians in here today. It's funny about that. They're all getting up on a Sunday morning, Christmas Eve. I thought everybody would be in panic mode, trying to get everything ready for tomorrow, or in 2 days' time for you guys.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really see anything here. Have I missed anything, Brad? Let's go and have a look at the spreadsheet. No. He's given me the wind-up signal now. I can see all these email messages that have come through. So, Lloyd, it was great talking with you. We'll look forward to these clinics that you've got coming up. I think they're going to be well attended. And yes, thank you very, very much.
First one in February. Yeah.
First one in February. Yes. Keep your eyes out. The social media team will be posting info and schedules out. I think they've already started putting stuff up on Facebook and the likes. So spread the word, and we'll see you in February. Thank you again, Lloyd.
Perfect. Okay. Take care.
Bye.